The human rescued her from certain death. Now the alien princess won't let him go. Asterisk. The crimson warning lights of Captain Marcus Kane's interceptor bathed the cockpit in an ominous glow, as distress signals pierced through the static of deep space communications. His weathered hands gripped the controls with practiced precision, the muscles in his jaw tightening as he decoded the emergency transmission. The diplomatic vessel Serenity was under attack near the neutral zone, and according to the encrypted message, Princess Zara Voss of the Valorian Empire was aboard. Marcus had heard whispers about the princess during his years patrolling the outer sectors. Stories spoke of her ethereal beauty with skin that shimmered like starlight and eyes the color of distant nebulae. More importantly, she was known for her diplomatic efforts to forge peace between humans and her people. If she died today, those fragile negotiations would crumble like ancient parchment. "Computer, maximum thrust," Marcus commanded, his voice cutting through the hum of the engines. The stars stretched into brilliant lines as his ship jumped to hyperspace, racing against time and fate itself. When he dropped back into normal space, the scene before him was chaos incarnate. The elegant curves of the Valorian diplomatic vessel were scarred by plasma burns, its hull breached in multiple places. Rebel fighters swarmed around it like angry wasps, their weapons lighting up the darkness with deadly fire, Marcus counted. At least 6 hostiles, their ships bearing the mark of the Crimson Brotherhood, radical faction opposed to human-alien cooperation. Without hesitation, Marcus activated his weapon systems. His ship, the Defiant Dawn, might have been smaller than the rebel fighters, but it was built for speed and precision. He dove into the fray with the fury of a man who had lost too much to senseless violence. The first rebel fighter exploded in a brilliant orange fireball as Marcus's plasma cannons found their mark. The second tried to evade, but Marcus anticipated the maneuver, his years of combat experience guiding his hands as he fired again. The remaining fighters turned their attention to him, and space erupted in a deadly dance of laser fire and evasive maneuvers. "This is Captain Kane of the Terran Defense Force," he broadcasted on all frequencies. "No surrender now, or face the consequences." Their response came in the form of concentrated fire that would have vaporized a lesser pilot. Marcus smiled grimly. As he rolled his ship through the barrage, his reflexes honed by countless battles along the frontier, one by one, the rebel ships fell to his superior piloting and determination. As the last enemy fighter tumbled into the void, Marcus turned his attention to the crippled diplomatic vessel. Emergency lights flickered through its viewports, and atmosphere was venting from several hull breaches. He had minutes, maybe less, before the ship's life support failed completely. "Serenity, this is Captain Kane. Do you copy?" Static answered him for long seconds before a melodic voice strained, with pain and fear, responded, "Captain Kane, this is Princess Zara. We have multiple casualties and critical system failures. I don't think we have much time." The voice sent an unexpected shiver down Marcus's spine. Even through the distortion of the damaged communications array, there was something about her tone that touched something deep within him. "Hold tight, Princess. I'm coming aboard." Marcus maneuvered his ship close to the Serenity's docking bay, which had thankfully remained intact. Engaged with a satisfying thunk, and he quickly donned his emergency suit before cycling through the airlock. The acrid smell of burned electronics and the metallic taste of recycled air greeted him as he stepped aboard the damaged vessel. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows through the corridors as Marcus made his way toward the bridge, following the princess's directions. Bodies of Valorian crew members lay scattered throughout the ship, their luminescent blood creating an otherworldly scene of tragedy.
Marcus
Felt his anger rising with each fallen defender he passed. He found her in the command center, and for a moment his breath caught in his throat. Princess Zara Voss was even more beautiful than the story suggested. Her skin did indeed shimmer with an inner light, and her silver hair cascaded over her shoulders like liquid moonlight. But it was her eyes that truly captured him deep. Violet orbs that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages and the fierce determination of a warrior. She was trapped beneath a fallen support beam, her elegant features twisted in pain. Purple blood seeped from a gash on her forehead, and her breathing was labored. Yet when she saw him, she managed a smile that could have lit up the darkest corners of space. She whispered, her voice filled with wonder and gratitude. "Gave my word," Marcus replied, kneeling beside her. His hands worked quickly to free her from the debris, his training taking over even as his heart raced from her proximity. When their skin touched as he lifted the beam, he felt an electric connection that seemed to ignite every nerve in his body. With Princess Zara freed from the wreckage, Marcus supported her weight as they made their way back to his ship. Her injuries were more severe than she had initially let on, and he could feel her trembling against him as they walked. The diplomatic vessel groaned ominously around them, its structural integrity failing by the minute. "We need to get out of here," Marcus said, his arm around her waist to steady her steps. "This ship won't hold together much longer." Zara nodded weakly, her violet eyes meeting his with a trust that both humbled and terrified him. No one had ever looked at him with such faith, such complete confidence in his ability to keep them safe. It was a responsibility he did not take lightly. They reached the Defiant. Dawn just as the Serenity's power core began to overload. Marcus sealed the airlock and immediately began the undocking sequence, his fingers flying over the controls with practiced efficiency. The explosion that followed lit up space like a newborn star, the shockwave sending his ship tumbling through the void. When the sensors cleared, Marcus found himself facing a new problem. The explosion had damaged his hyperdrive, and they were stranded in the middle of nowhere with limited supplies. The nearest inhabited system was weeks away at sublight speed. But there was a small moon orbiting a gas giant nearby that showed signs of a breathable atmosphere. "Where are we going?" Zara asked from the co-pilot's seat, where Marcus had gently placed her after administering basic first aid to her wounds. Her voice was stronger now, though he could see the pain she was trying to hide. "Kepler 4 for to see," Marcus replied, adjusting their course toward the small celestial body. "It's not much to look at, but the atmospheric readings suggest we can survive there while I repair the ship." Zara studied the moon on the navigation display, her expression thoughtful. "It's beautiful in its own way," she said softly. "Sometimes the most isolated places hold the greatest wonders." As they descended through the moon's thin atmosphere, Marcus found himself stealing glances at his passenger. There was something about her that went beyond her obvious physical beauty. She carried herself with the grace of nobility. But there was also a strength in her bearing that spoke of someone who had faced adversity and emerged stronger for it. The moon's surface was a tapestry of silver, sand dunes, and crystalline formations that caught the light of the distant star and scattered it in brilliant rainbow patterns. Marcus found a suitable landing site near a small oasis fed by an underground spring, the only source of liquid water visible on the otherwise arid landscape. "It's not the palace you're used to," Marcus said as they surveyed their temporary home through the viewport, "but it'll keep us alive." Zara turned to him with that radiant smile again. "I've never been one for palaces anyway. They're beautiful, but cold. This place," she gestured toward the alien landscape, "this has warmth." Over the next few days, they established a routine that brought them closer together with each passing hour. Marcus worked on repairing the hyperdrive, while Zara, despite his protests about her injuries, insisted on helping gather supplies and maintain their small camp. They discovered that the crystalline formations were edible, providing essential minerals, while the spring water was pure and refreshing. In the evenings, they would sit by a small thermal vent that provided warmth as the moon's thin atmosphere couldn't retain much heat from the distant star. It was during these quiet moments that they began to truly know each other, sharing stories of their worlds and their lives. "Tell me about Earth," Zara said one evening, her head resting on Marcus's shoulder as they watched the gas giant rise over the horizon, its swirling storms visible even from their distance. Marcus felt his heart skip at the casual intimacy of her touch. "It's a world of incredible diversity," he began, his voice soft in the night air. "Blue oceans that stretch beyond the horizon, mountains that touch the clouds, forests so green they hurt your eyes. But what makes it special isn't the landscapes, it's the people. Humans have this incredible ability to adapt, to overcome any obstacle put in front of them. Is that why you saved me? Zara asked, lifting her head to look at him. Because humans don't give up? Marcus met her gaze, seeing something deeper in those violet depths. I saved you because it was the right thing to do, but I stayed to get to know you because ... He paused, struggling with words he'd never expected to say, because you're unlike anyone I've ever met. The admission hung in the air between them, charged with possibility and danger in equal measure. As their second week on the moon began, the repairs to the Defiant Dawn were progressing well, but Marcus found himself working slower than usual. Part of him dreaded the moment when they would have to leave this peaceful sanctuary and return to the complicated realities of their respective worlds. Zara had made remarkable progress in her recovery, her Valorian physiology healing faster than human standard. She moved with fluid grace as she helped Marcus with the more delicate repair work, her smaller hands able to reach components that his couldn't. Working so closely together, their bodies occasionally brushing against each other, it created a tension that neither could ignore. "Hand me the plasma coupling," Marcus said, his voice slightly hoarse as Zara leaned across him to reach into the engine compartment. Their closeness made his pulse quicken, and he caught the subtle scent of her skin, something like jasmine mixed with starlight. "This one?" she asked, her breath warm against his neck as she passed him the component. Their fingers touched as he took it from her. The same electric sensation he'd felt during their first meeting sparked between them. "Zara," he said quietly, turning to face her. They were so close now that he could see the delicate patterns of light that moved beneath her skin, like constellations mapping the geography of her soul. "I know," she whispered, her violet eyes reflecting his own conflicted emotions. "I feel it too." The repair forgotten, Marcus cupped her face gently in, his hands marveling at the warmth of her skin. "This is impossible," he said, even as he leaned closer to her. "We're from different worlds, different species. Your people would never accept. My people have accepted many impossible things," Zara interrupted, placing her hands over his. "They accepted that we could travel between stars. They accepted that we could find peace with species we once considered enemies. Perhaps they can accept that love recognizes no boundaries." The word love hung between them like a bridge spanning the void. And Marcus realized that what he felt for this extraordinary woman had indeed grown beyond attraction or friendship. In the space of 2 weeks, she had become essential to him, in ways he was only beginning to understand. "Are you certain?" he asked, searching her eyes for any sign of doubt. Her answer came not in words but in action, as she rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, as if they were both afraid of the power of what they were unleashing. But as Marcus pulled her closer, feeling her arms wind around his neck, the kiss deepened into something that seemed to ignite the very air around them. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Zara smiled up at him with such radiance that Marcus felt as if he were seeing her for the first time. "I have never been more certain of anything in my life," she said softly. That evening, they made love under the alien stars, their bodies finding a rhythm as old as time itself. Marcus marveled at the way Zara's skin seemed to glow more brightly, in the throes of passion, creating patterns of light that danced across both their bodies. Every touch, every whispered endearment, seemed to bind them closer together, creating something new and precious between them. Afterward, as they lay entwined, on the soft sand beside their shelter, Zara traced lazy patterns on Marcus's chest with her fingertip. "My father always told me that the heart knows no logic," she said dreamily. "I never understood what he meant until now." Marcus caught her hand and brought it to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her palm. "What happens when we leave here?" he asked, voicing the fear that had been growing in his heart. "When we return to our duties, our responsibilities?" Zara was quiet for a long moment, her violet eyes fixed on the swirling storms of the gas giant above them. "I don't know," she admitted finally. "But I know that what we have found here is worth fighting for. Love like this doesn't come along often in a lifetime." "Then we fight," Marcus said with the same determination that had driven him to rescue her in the first place. "Whatever it takes, we fight for this." As if summoned by his words, the communication array suddenly crackled to life with an incoming transmission. The outside world had found them, and their time in paradise was coming to an end. The voice that emerged from the communications array was crisp and authoritative, carrying the unmistakable tone of Valorian military command. Princess Zara Voss, this is Admiral Keth Morvain of the Imperial Fleet. Please respond immediately. Zara's expression grew troubled as she recognized the voice. Keth, she murmured to Marcus before activating the transmitter. This is Princess Zara. I am safe and unharmed. Thank the stars, came the relieved response. We have been searching for you for 2 weeks. What is your status? Are you being held against your will? Marcus felt a chill at the question's implication. Tell him about the rescue, he said quietly. But Zara shook her head. I am with Captain Marcus Kane of the Terran Defense Force, she replied carefully. He saved my life when the Serenity was attacked by Crimson Brotherhood rebels. We are stranded on Kepler 442c, awaiting repairs to his vessel. There was a long pause before the Admiral responded, and when he did, his tone had shifted noticeably. Princess, we are dispatching a fleet to your location immediately. Maintain your distance from the human until we arrive. That is a direct order. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Marcus and Zara staring at each other in the sudden silence. The weight of reality had crashed down upon them like a collapsing star, and the fragile world they had built on this remote moon suddenly felt as ephemeral as morning mist. He suspects something, Zara said, her voice barely above a whisper. Uncle Keth has always been able to read me better than anyone. Marcus ran his hands through his hair, pacing the small confines of the shelter. What will happen when they arrive? Will you tell them about us? Zara began, then stopped, her internal conflict clear on her beautiful features. Marcus, you must understand, my position is not just ceremonial. I am heir to the Valorian throne, and my choices affect the lives of billions. If I openly consort with a human, it could destabilize everything we've worked to build. The words hit Marcus like physical blows, even though he had known this moment would come. So what are you saying? That these past weeks meant nothing? That what we feel for each other is just a fantasy? No. Zara turned to face him, tears glistening in her violet eyes. Don't you dare diminish what we have. These have been the most real, most honest weeks of my entire life. With you, I'm not a princess, or a diplomat, or a symbol. Marcus closed the distance between them, taking her hands in his. Then choose me, he said simply. Choose us. We'll find a way to make it work. It's not that simple, Zara replied, though her grip on his hands tightened. If I abandon my duties, the hardline factions in both our governments will use it as proof that human-Valorian cooperation is impossible. And we could be looking at war within a year. If you sacrifice your happiness for politics, Marcus challenged. What kind of life is that? What kind of leader will you be if you deny the very thing that makes you feel alive? Before Zara could answer, the roar of approaching engines filled the air outside their shelter. Through the transparent aluminum window, they could see a massive Valorian dreadnought settling onto the moon's surface, its hull gleaming silver in the alien sunlight. Smaller escort ships circled overhead like predatory birds. They're here, Zara whispered, and Marcus could hear the fear in her voice. Whatever happens, Marcus said, pulling her into his arms one last time, I want you to know that loving you has been the greatest privilege of my life. Their kiss was desperate this time, filled with the knowledge that it might be their last. When they finally broke apart, Zara's tears were flowing freely, each drop catching the light like liquid diamonds. Love you too, she whispered against his lips, more than duty, more than crown, more than anything I've ever known. The sound of approaching footsteps outside their shelter announced the arrival of the Valorian boarding party. Marcus and Zara stepped apart, but kept their hands clasped together until the very last moment. Admiral Keth Morvain entered first, his silver hair and scarred features marking him as a veteran of countless battles. His violet eyes so similar. Zara swept the small shelter before settling on Marcus with unconcealed suspicion. Princess, he said formally, inclining his head, I trust you are truly unharmed. I am perfectly well, Uncle, Zara replied, her royal composure falling back into place like armor. Captain Kane has been nothing but honorable in his conduct. The Admiral's gaze moved between them, and Marcus could see the moment when understanding dawned in those ancient eyes. "I see," he said quietly. "Captain Kane, you have our gratitude for preserving the princess's life. However, I'm afraid your ship will need to remain here for the time being while we conduct a full investigation into the attack on the Serenity." It was politely worded, but Marcus recognized a prison sentence when he heard one. "Of course, Admiral, I understand the need for thoroughness." As the Valorian soldiers began escorting Zara toward their ship, she turned back one last time. In that moment, Marcus saw her make her choice, saw the steel enter her spine, and the fire return to her eyes. "Uncle," she said, her voice carrying the authority of royalty, "I have something important to discuss with you, something that will change everything." The Imperial Council chamber aboard the Valorian flagship Eternal Glory was a study in controlled chaos. Princess Zara stood at the center of the circular room, her head held high despite the storm of voices surrounding her. Admiral Morvain and the other military commanders argued fiercely with the diplomatic corps, their words creating a cacophony that would have been overwhelming to human ears. "This is madness, Princess," declared General Vexthorn, his battle-scarred features twisted. "With disapproval, an alliance with a single human is one thing, but to suggest a romantic entanglement, I suggest nothing." Zara interrupted, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade. "I state a fact. Captain Marcus Kane and I have formed a bond that transcends politics and prejudice. Our feelings for each other are real, and they represent something our peoples desperately need, proof that true understanding is possible between our species." The chamber fell silent at her words, the weight of her declaration settling over the assembled officers like a heavy blanket. Admiral Morvain studied his niece with eyes that had seen too much war and loss, searching for any sign of doubt in her resolve. "You understand what you're asking," he said finally. "Not just of us, but of your own future. The throne, your birthright, everything you've been prepared for since childhood, you would risk it all for this human." Zara's hand moved unconsciously to her heart, where she could still feel the warmth of Marcus's final embrace. "I would risk it for the chance to show our people that love is stronger than fear, that cooperation is possible not just in trade, agreements and military treaties, but in the deepest bonds between individuals." Meanwhile, on the moon's surface, Marcus paced the confines of his ship like a caged animal. The Valorian guards posted outside were polite but firm. He was not to leave the vessel until further notice. The repairs to his hyperdrive sat abandoned, no longer seeming important in the face of losing Zara forever. The communication panel suddenly crackled to life, and Marcus rushed to answer it, hoping beyond hope that it might be her. Instead, he found himself face to face with Admiral Morvain's weathered features. "Captain Kane," the Admiral said without preamble, "you have created quite a situation. Sir, I want you to know that my feelings for the princess are genuine." Marcus replied, meeting the older man's gaze directly. "I would never do anything to harm her or compromise her position." "And yet that is exactly what you have done," Morvain replied, though his tone was not unkind. "Tell me, Captain, what do you know of Valorian bonding customs?" Marcus frowned, uncertain where this was leading. "Very little, I'm afraid. Our species haven't shared that level of cultural exchange." The Admiral's expression softened slightly. "Among our people, when two individuals form a deep emotional and physical connection, as you and the princess clearly have, it creates what we call a star bond. It is not easily broken, and attempting to do so causes great suffering for both parties." "Are you saying that Zara is currently fighting the entire Imperial Council for the right to choose her own path?" Morvain interrupted. "She claims that denying this bond would not only cause her personal anguish, but would also send a message to both our peoples that cooperation is impossible at the most fundamental level." Marcus felt his heart leap with hope and terror in equal measure. "What can I do?" "That depends," the Admiral said, leaning forward. "Are you prepared to face the consequences of what you've begun? Union with a Valorian princess would make you a target for every faction that opposes human-alien cooperation. Your life would be in constant danger, and you would be forever caught between two worlds. I've been caught between worlds my entire career, Marcus replied, without hesitation. The difference is that now I have something worth fighting for. The admiral studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. The princess has requested that you be brought before the council to speak on your own behalf. I should warn you, many of them view humans as barely civilized barbarians. You will need to prove not only your worth, but your understanding of what this union would mean for both our species. An hour later, Marcus found himself standing in the same council chamber where Zara had made her declaration.
Oh.
She stood beside the admiral's chair, her face lighting up when she saw him despite the formal setting. The assembled Valorians regarded him with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. Captain Marcus Kane announced the council's senior diplomat, a woman whose age was impossible to determine. You stand accused of compromising the princess's judgment through emotional manipulation. How do you answer? Marcus took a deep breath and spoke from his heart. Honored council members, I stand accused of falling in love with the most remarkable woman I have ever met. If that is a crime, then I am guilty. But I would argue that love is not manipulation. It is recognition. When I first saw Princess Zara, even in the midst of battle and chaos, I recognized something in her that called to something in me. She represents everything I admire about Valorian culture: strength, wisdom, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to peace. He turned to face Zara, letting his love for her shine clearly in his eyes. More than that, she saw something in me worth saving, worth trusting, worth loving in return. Our bond was not formed through deception or calculation, but through shared hardship, mutual respect, and the simple recognition that we are better together than apart. General Thorne rose from his seat, his voice dripping with disdain. Pretty words, human, but what of practical matters? You cannot give the princess children. You cannot share in our longevity. In 50 years, you will be dead. While she remains young, how is that love? The question struck Marcus like a physical blow, highlighting the one aspect of their relationship he had tried not to think about. But before he could respond, Zara stepped forward. General Thorne raises a valid concern, she said, her voice steady and clear. But he makes several assumptions. First, that love can only be measured in time rather than depth. Second, that physical differences are more important than spiritual connection. And third, she paused, meeting Marcus's eyes with a smile that seemed to illuminate the entire chamber. That I intend to let something as simple as biology stand in the way of forever. She turned back to the council. Our scientists have been working on longevity treatments for decades. What if I told you that love provided the motivation to perfect them? What if this union led to advances that benefited both our species? The chamber erupted in fresh debate, but Admiral Morvain raised his hand for silence. The princess makes compelling arguments, he said thoughtfully. And her point about cooperation extends beyond the personal. If we can bridge the gap between our species in this most intimate way, it sends a powerful message about the possibilities for our shared future. Over the next several hours, the debate continued, but Marcus could sense the tide turning. Zara argued passionately for the right to choose her own destiny, while also demonstrating how their union could serve as a symbol of human Valorian cooperation. Marcus found himself fielding questions about everything from human customs to his military record, each answer scrutinized for signs of deception or unworthiness. Finally, as the ship's chronometer marked the end of the debate period, Admiral Morvain called for a formal vote. One by one, the council members cast their decisions, the chamber falling silent as each choice was recorded. When the final vote was tallied, the admiral stood. By a margin of 7-5, the council recognizes the validity of the star bond between Princess Zara Voss and Captain Marcus Kane. Furthermore, we approve their union, with the condition that it be formalized according to both human and Valorian customs. The chamber erupted in a mixture of cheers and protests, but Marcus only had eyes for Zara as she ran into his arms. Their kiss was witnessed by dozens of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. And in that moment, it felt like the stars themselves were celebrating their victory. I told you we would fight for this, Marcus whispered against her lips. And I told you that love like ours was worth fighting for, Zara replied, tears of joy streaming down her glowing cheeks. 6 months later, the wedding of Princess Zara. Voss and Captain Marcus Kane was broadcast across a dozen star systems, watched by billions of beings who saw in their union proof that the greatest barriers could be overcome by courage, determination, and love. The ceremony itself was a beautiful blend of human and Valorian traditions, held aboard a specially constructed station at the exact midpoint between Earth and the Valorian homeworld, as they exchanged vows under the light of both their suns. Marcus and Zara knew that their love had become something larger than themselves. It's a symbol of hope for countless others who dared to dream of a universe where differences were celebrated rather than feared. And in the years that followed, as their union inspired others and contributed to an unprecedented era of cooperation between species, they never forgot the small moon where their love was born, or the simple truth that had guided them through every challenge, that hearts willing to bridge any gap could overcome any obstacle. No matter how vast the space between the stars,